Well, let's get started. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Second,
We want to call the roll?
Commissioner Patrick? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Here.
Oh, sorry, she's not there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Commissioner Burt?
Here.
Commissioner Bennett?
yes.
Commissioner Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Knopf?
Yes.
Commissioner Newton?
Yes.
Chair Johnson?
Yes. Okay. Considerations of the findings from the November 23rd, 2021 Planning Commission meetings. Are there any amendments to the findings?
I just had one question. And unfortunately, I can't look at the findings while I'm on the Zoom. So I was trying to remember what I wanted to say. On the first finding, which had to do with the FAR, there was a huge, long first paragraph explaining the city's position originally on it, and then going on to explain our position. And I don't see the findings as a place to, it's not like a brief or something. I mean, I don't understand why all that extra stuff is in there about the city's position and why the finding just doesn't say, we found that it was a finished space and that there was, it didn't comply with the FAR, and that's the end of it.
So, Lisa, this is Jeff. So how, I'm looking at those right now. How about,
I'm trying
I'm
to
looking
see,
at,
I'm trying
if
to
we-
pull it up on my phone. I just
Okay.
never occurred to me that I could do that, but of course I can, I think.
so the first paragraph, just kind of summarize why it's written the way it is how the gross floor area is counted, and it's explaining that there's, by your all's findings that there's the existing garage and that's on the property, the Harding garage, and then the attached and the detached, in other words. Then that second paragraph goes into the kind of the interpretation of basement, attic areas and things like that into the gross floor area that you guys determined that this is finished. And then the third goes into that this is being regarded as a new building permit and that you guys find that agrees with your findings on it. So,
Okay. I see yeah, I have it up now. I guess what I was wondering is about the second paragraph that starts with, although staff's interpretation of CBMC, et cetera, why that whole part of it is even in there. And it doesn't just start with, the Planning Commission finds that the petition's pictorial exhibits demonstrating the Harding's loft area is finished. Why that second paragraph doesn't just start with, not saying yet the Planning Commission, but just saying the Planning Commission finds.
so
Not-
strike,
Well, Commissioner Kerr, if I could jump in here, this, if you recall, Jeff reviewed it, found it complied, and this is an appeal. And so it's explaining, what the city staff got wrong, and it's difficult to explain what the city staff got wrong without explaining what the city staff did. And so that's why it's in there. There's no reason we can't just jump to it and say, the Planning Commission finds the petitioner's pictorial exhibits, right where you
Okay.
said, but that's why it's in there, is it's an appeal.
Maybe, okay, I'm just used to seeing findings of fact, at least in the work I've done, that were just much more succinct, that were just listed the
Sure.
findings of fact and conclusions of law, both, but the findings of fact just laid out and not with a whole big explanation of what the city did and what, and I don't know. I just sort of think that opens us up. I'm concerned that it's laying out both sides of the argument in our findings of fact, and that bothers me. Does that make sense?
But aren't those laid out in the earlier findings of fact that let's say another body is reviewing this beyond, somebody in the city of Cannon Beach. There is a trail that does have a conflicting finding of fact, and this just kind of summarizes why the two are not aligned. We don't agree, basically.
Right, and I think that anybody could see that by listening to the meeting I just have, and maybe I'm wrong, it's just my experience with findings of fact is they don't lay out both arguments. They say what we found.
Mhm.
And I, I mean, I'm not gonna get all worked up about it. I'm just saying that to me, it seems a little inappropriate to put in what the city found and then what we found. The findings of fact are supposed to lay out what our findings are, not what the city's findings are. I don't see them as a place to put forth history, but if there's another way of doing it that I'm not familiar with.
It's entirely up to the cities, there's, like I said, it's entirely up to the planning commission what you want to include in the findings. The reason it's in there is, if you're going to have an appeal, explaining what the decision was below, so that you can explain what went wrong.
So we would in effect just start basically in the middle of that sentence where it starts yet, middle of that paragraph where it starts yet, and just put the planning commission finds a petition was.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
And leave in the first paragraph is fine and everything else. It just that
So
one,
strike the first sentence of the second paragraph.
right.
Got it.
That's what I'd like to see.
And the word
Okay.
yet.
And the word yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I don't think there's a whole lot more to discuss. I could be wrong, but
No, everything else
Is
looks
there
good.
anything to be discussed? I mean, we really did not have an in-depth conversation or maybe any conversation about the living wall or the homeowners association in our last meeting. You have covered that here in points 3 and 4, and I'm okay with that, but it did strike me as it wasn't something we talked about.
I think if I recall, and I might be wrong about this too, but I recall it was just in passing that we might have said something to the effect of, I'm not sure if we have that authority. I don't, that's all I remember, not being unclear myself about if it seemed to me to be something for the city council to do, to make sure that they comply with their contract, not something that we can deny or agree with an appeal of a building permit. I mean, I think we were unclear about, we were not sure, we didn't take a position very strongly because I don't think anybody was really sure if that was in our province.
So the last sentence, for example, on the living wall reads, the planning commission does not find the appellant's argument persuasive and finds the city may take enforcement action under its code, but that does not extend to allowing it to refuse to issue a building permit that otherwise meets the requirements of its code and the PUD. Does that summarize? How we-
Seems to, yeah.
Okay, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, Charles, you think so?
Yes.
Okay.
And the fourth one was withdrawn. So I think we're covered on the rest of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really a good job in general,
I would
except for
agree.
that one sentence. Yeah.
well, so does somebody want to make a motion to approve the findings?
Well, there is just one thing before we jump there, was there's a proposal to, oh, never mind, I'm sorry. The findings, we wouldn't amend those depending on which direction we went with the two different proposals would be built.
So there is that discussion in the staff report about an alternative that, it wasn't discussed at length. And so it's possible, pulled together the draft findings based on what you said. Afterwards, staff was reviewing the meeting, and Commissioner Newton had made a suggestion about, how to find a way forward. And the idea was, could there be an alternative where instead of denying the application, the Planning Commission approved the application with a condition that the house cannot be built until the garage unless the garage on the site was torn down.
I
Yeah.
don't think we wanted to do that.
It wasn't discussed, but it was, after the fact, after the meeting was over, that came up. And so, this is not something the Planning Commission has to do, but it was just an alternative in light of the suggestion at the meeting. And if the Planning Commission doesn't want to go there, they certainly don't have to.
Other than my comment on hopes for some kind of a path forward, is there any benefit to what's trying to be accomplished here with ultimately some thought that this is probably going to be appealed regardless of who?
Well, there's a pending lawsuit right now to try and get them to tear down the garage and pay for it. Pay for the tear down and pay all the attorney's fees. So I don't want to get involved in that at all.
Yeah, and the lawsuit should not affect the way you make the decision. The decision should be entirely based on reviewing the code provisions and what makes sense to you. And
Asking them to rip down the garage is not part of the code provisions, and that is interfering with the lawsuit.
to be clear, it is not asking them to rip down the garage. What it's saying is that if you want to move forward with this application, have you submitted it, that garage would have to be gone first. And if the
Well-
garage doesn't come down, the house doesn't go up.
I'd rather do our findings as we've done them and send it on. It's going to go up to the council next.
And that's fine. It was just, as you said, a possible different alternative that wasn't discussed that we wanted to put in front of the commission.
Yeah,
I'm fine with just our findings as we were. It was,
And I
I
agree
grabbed
with
that.
that.
sorry.
I agree also to keep them as we found them.
Okay. Well, will one of you make a motion to approve the findings?
I make a motion to approve the findings with the change that we made.
And
I'll second.
let me be clear about what the change was that you put forward.
Yeah, it's striking the first sentence in the second paragraph.
Oh, okay.
And then striking the word yet and
yet.
starting the sentence with the planning commission.
Oh, okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion.
What was the second?
What?
Barb, thanks, Barb. Okay, Katie?
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes,
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes,
Commissioner Newton,
Yes,
Commissioner Burnt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes,
Chair Johnson.
Yes. Okay, is there a motion for the chair to sign the appropriate orders?
so
I still
moved.
move. Okay, oh, someone else did.
second,
Was that Barb? Okay,
Yeah, so Barb and then Charles.
second,
okay, got it.
Okay, call the roll.
Commissioner Burnt,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
yes,
Commissioner Kerr,
Yes,
Commissioner Knopf,
Yes,
Commissioner Newton,
yes,
Chair Johnson.
Yes. So if there wasn't a motion for the chair to sign these, Could I sign them anyways?
So.
I think that's a Kabizman.
Yeah, I think this is, if you recall a few years ago and previously, the city, the way the planning commission operated was the city would make a decision, but without reviewing findings. And so what the planning commission would make that motion to authorize the chair to sort of review the findings and determine whether or not they met the intent of the commission. With the sort of switch that we've made where the findings come back to the commission, it probably isn't necessary. Occasionally, there are still decisions that the commission makes where there aren't findings to review as much as, you know, go out and sign it. But to the extent these findings are reviewed by the planning commission, that motion probably is no longer necessary.
Okay. Okay, that's the items on the agenda. Does anybody have anything to say for good of the order?
I would just like to introduce Robert Sinclair. He's our new planner, started yesterday.
Well, hi, welcome.
And so, yeah, that's it for.
All of our meetings are this short.
And we
Yeah,
always have
next month
consensus.
December is going to be a long one, I think.
Yeah, I have stuff in the oven tonight. Okay, in that case, we're adjourned.
All right, thank you all.